Hello and welcome to another edition of Pop and Scott Talk Baseball. Before we even jump in to see how you're doing today, my friends have been asking me, get Pop to talk about this. So I'm going to get you to talk about this right here. So this is your boy. This is from
that was day before yesterday.
Yeah, so you can see all 5 pitches, and this person was called out on strikes. So yeah, this is same guy, same umpire. I just wanted to throw that up here. It was sent to me to share with you to see what your thoughts were on this. So I did what I was at.
Well, I mean, it's no surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. The man has been doing this since the first day he walked into the league.
Yeah, I saw a thing today that said Angel Hernandez is already kicked out of the playoffs or something.
Well, he didn't do the playoffs last year because he was so bad. But
also he missed a lot of the season, hurt or sick.
Yeah, he had some kind of. He probably had a frontal lobotomy, but or he had to have his eyes checked and the test failed.
Right.
But it's just, I watched C.B. Buckner behind the plate yesterday in the game he was doing, and he did a fantastic job. I mean, that's one of the best games I've seen. He missed a few calls, but I umpired for 3 years in high school. I missed calls. Everybody misses calls behind the plate. What makes a good umpire is if he misses the same ones, because then the batter can always adjust. But those pitches, high, low, way outside, it's just what can the batter do? He can't do anything.
And I have seen this going. He's not the only one right now either. But I think what is happening is, since MLB doesn't do any, or the Umpires Association, whoever controls it, whatever their name is, doesn't do anything publicly. It's all done in the hush-hushness that we continue to see bad umpiring and no correctness in getting better. And it's sad to say that, because
the reason you don't hear anything is because they don't do anything.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like, is they don't do anything. But even if they do, it's a verbal.
What do they do? The umpires back out there the next day.
Right.
What are they doing?
Yeah.
They find any money? What? I mean, Look. The Umpires Association is almost as strong as the Players Association in baseball.
Right.
And they have that's a powerful union. And so it's hard to do anything. But the other thing I heard last year was this. Well, the box that they use for the umpires to be judged by Major League Baseball is different than the box that you see on the game.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, then there's 2 different strike zones. And you have a sport with 2 different strike zones? I mean, go back 2 weeks. Hey, boys, if you're in a big hole, stop digging. Stop making these idiotic excuses, because it makes no sense. A few of us out here are smart enough to figure it out.
Right. Well, I know they came out and said they didn't want to do anything publicly because then it ruins the credibility of the umpires, which I don't understand.
The umpiring is ruining the credibility of the umpire.
Right. When you have to have stats for the umpire that's umpiring behind the plate that day, so people kind of have an understanding of the strike zone that they're going to have. I don't know what they have for Angel Hernandez. When he umpires, it must be good luck right there when they go. Just keep calm and don't get thrown out too early.
Well, I don't know who was doing the Atlanta game yesterday, but Sale had a guy struck out. Now, it was a high outside pitch, but it was in the strike zone. Umpire called the ball. About 5 runs got scored after that. And, he'd have been out of it. I mean, it's just it's not just one umpire.
Right.
It's just,
that's my point.
It's just that Angel Hernandez is so blatant.
Yeah.
He
dares people to say anything.
He's so blatantly inept.
Right.
And he dares anybody to say anything. He's Hispanic. So as soon as somebody says something, he says they're racist.
Right.
So, I mean, that's his fallback. And I mean, okay, fine. Hey,
because he brought it.
If I'm a racist because I'm saying you stink when you umpire behind the plate, then I'm a racist. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because he did bring a suit against them for not being in the playoffs.
Because he didn't put him in the playoffs because he stunk. So they wouldn't put him in the playoffs. So he filed a suit against him and they put him in the playoffs. He is also the head of one of the crews. He's a crew chief.
Yeah, so he's bad all around. But they told me to bring it up and let you see it and get your thoughts. Yeah, we'll get him fired up first.
Well, I saw a couple of the pitches when they showed it on the highlights.
Well, I did see the Fried one that you talked about last week, and that was horrible. Fried's better than me because I would have been tossed. I would have been tossed at that game. So that was really, really bad. And again, he knows he's bad, missed it, and then he's looking around to wait for somebody to say anything. So
daring somebody to say something.
Right. I did notice that as well. But on to anything fun that we could talk about.
Well, let's see. There are 43 starting pitchers that are injured and 33 relievers. That's a lot of fun.
And we're going to blame it on the pitch clock.
Well, it was brought out this week that since the pitch clock was inaugurated, the injuries to the pitchers has gone up. But then they failed to mention that the injuries to the pitchers was going up before the pitch clock.
And do you want me to give you a causation with correlation? Because we know that's not always the true statement. But if they go back to one instance that they stopped doing in the season, and that was the sticky substance. When they started patrolling that, all of a sudden, elbows, shoulders, all these injuries started. One of my favorite pitchers, DeGrom, as soon as it happened, because these guys are trying to get so much rotation on the ball.
Well, the pitcher said they didn't have to grip the ball harder to make it spin.
Yeah. And they're going 100% on every pitch. We've talked about this ad nauseum now on this channel. That is the biggest difference. That's why they can't go 9 innings. That's why they get lucky if they go 6. And they throw 100 pitches in 5 innings because they're scared to throw to contact. And that's just how it is in baseball now. I said it last week. The game has changed. The basics are the same, but how it's changed is bigger, stronger, more ready players. These guys are ready from day one. They have all the technology in the world to get them ready. And the pitchers have to throw as hard as they possibly can. And I said before, some of these pitchers, when they come back and they can't throw as hard, become pitchers and they become better. So I think that's the biggest problem.
Well, real quick, I mean, Rick Pivetta went out with a for the Red Sox with an elbow strain. Trevor Story is out for the year with his shoulder. He's the shortstop, of course. Jerry Grody, who was the catcher for the '69 Mets when they won the World Series, the Miracle Mets, he passed away, 81 years old. And some other pitchers hit the sideline. Strider had he didn't have Tommy John.
He's out officially, yeah.
They put a little bracket in his elbow, and that's going to be there permanently. And they're hoping that'll help him get through that. They moved Senga to the 60-day list with his shoulder. Chris Bryant went out last night with his back. So I mean, but I just want to say this about the pitching. I'm not surprised that the pitch clock might have something to do with it. I'm sure. But there's some other things too. Now, as old as I am, when I was a kid in the 50s, the Major League Baseball players didn't make the money they make now. So when the season was over, they went to work for their daddy in their hardware store, or they put roofs on, or construction work, sold cars. They had to have another job. They didn't get paid enough by baseball to last all year. So they had to have another job. So they weren't doing baseball things. Now, I was looking at one of the pitchers, I think it was from Toronto. He said this: one of the problems they're having now is the pitchers are not taking any time off when the season's over. They go right to the workouts, trying to increase speed and spin rate, because that's where the money is. So if they want to make money, they got to get better. They're not taking any time off. All year long, they're putting their arms through it. They're putting their arms through this kind of stress. So you can't just blame it on the pitch clock.
Right. That's what I said. Causation isn't necessarily. I can point to a lot of things that's happened at the same time. To me, when the sticky stuff went away, we had Glasnow went out, DeGrom went out. All these pitchers that year went out, and they said that sticky stuff helped them grip. Even some of the hitters were a little upset because that sticky stuff went away. You remember their hitters were getting hit or getting buzzed because the pitcher didn't know where the ball was going,
right?
Because it was slipping out of their hands. So there is different things out there. I don't understand how the pitch clock, how now you have to throw in 20 seconds instead of 25 seconds. What that difference is.
They're just using it as an excuse.
Right. Yeah. That to me is.
They want to get rid of it. The pitchers want to get rid of the pitch clock. That's what this is all about. Because Joshua Gray, he went out the other day with a flexor strain. Pedro Martinez, he said on MLB that it's the team's fault as much as anybody, because they should force these people to take some time down and rest their arms before they start going through all this. And then there was one other pitcher. Oh, yeah, Valdez of Houston. He went out the other night with an elbow.
Well, they were saying, like, the guys were coming out their first day in spring training games throwing 100.
Yeah, remember I read that. Read that from that executive a couple of weeks ago. Right. All right, here's another thing, guys. And this has been going on now for the last 10, 15 years. To me, this is the most serious thing about this whole thing. And nobody really wants to talk about it. Your buddies, all of them. I hope that they tune in and watch the Little League World Series. I really do, because it's a lot of fun to watch these kids. Watch the playoffs up to the Little League World Series. And then we'll watch the Little League World Series. These are 11, 12, and 13-year-old children. Mostly 12 and 13. Because if you're 13 before a certain date, you can play. It's an 11, 12-year-old league, but if you're 13 before a certain date, you can play. They're mostly 12 and 13-year-old children. Watch how many breaking balls they throw. Tons of them. Okay. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, but I played one on TV once. Here's the deal. When you're born, your forearm right here, this bone in your forearm is here, here, and here. It's in 3 sections. The middle, between the 3 sections, it's soft tissue forming into the bone. Now, the better hygiene you have, the better diet you have, the more calcium you take in and things like that, the bone will grow to be one long piece sooner. But it doesn't, those bones don't get to be one long bone until you're about 13, 14 years old. So for a kid to be throwing breaking pitches at that time is not good. Tommy John surgery between the ages of 12 and 18 has quadrupled in the last 10 years. Tommy John surgery for teenagers. The kids are playing all year round. They're playing travel ball. They never quit. They turn on to Major League Baseball. Their parents are watching it with them. See, Johnny, if you can throw 100, you're going to make $50 million. See, Johnny, if you can throw 100, you might be able to get a scholarship to Vanderbilt. There are some parents who have asked for Tommy John surgery for their children, and they haven't had a problem yet because they think it'll strengthen the elbow. That's how serious this has gotten. It starts with the kids. When I coached Little League, I would not allow a kid to even try to throw a curveball. Wouldn't allow it. I had different children ask me, Mike, hey, coach, how can I throw a slider? How can I throw a break? No. Throw a fastball, and I'll show you how to throw a changeup. I'm not going to show. No, you're not throwing a breaking pitch. You'll hurt your arm. We're just out here playing baseball. So that's how serious this has gotten. It goes all the way back to 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. And it goes all the way up now where the major league pitchers don't take any time off because they're over in the barn working on how fast they can throw the ball and in the spin rate. So that's where the problems are coming in. And until they figure out a way to rectify this situation, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Now, I agree. Maybe they can go back to some form of that sticky stuff so the pitchers can get a better grip and don't have to grip the ball so hard. But there again, son, they didn't have this sticky stuff when I was coming up. And Warren Spahn would throw 130 pitches a game because he didn't throw the ball 900 miles an hour.
Yeah, well, he didn't do 100% on every pitch. He could throw to contact. You watch and read a lot about these older ball pitchers, and they talk a lot about throwing to contact. I mean, I bring up Maddox a lot because I used to watch him. I mean, we had the Braves on every night at wherever I was living at, and because that was the TBS. So, there was a lot about Maddox, and he would turn around and tell Chipper Jones or whoever was playing third, Terry Pendleton, at whatever stage the Braves were at that time, hey, it's coming to you. Because he knew if he threw a ball in the right location, all he's going to do was ground it to third.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's definitely has changed. And that's what I talked about last week was these pitchers, I feel, need to learn how to pitch instead of throw as hard as they possibly can.
Well, it's not going to change, son, if the money is tied to how hard you throw.
Right.
The same thing with batting.
Also it's a thing out there.
No longer tied to batting average. It's tied to how many runs you can knock in and how many home runs.
Well, that's also another thing is you're seeing more and more parents not wanting their kids to pitch as well because of that. They want them to be shortstops because, I mean, let's look at the Padres. They got 7 shortstops starting on their offense. I mean, in their defensive field, 7 shortstops that are 6 of them are not playing shortstop, of course, but they all were shortstops at one time or another, and starting for. And
if you saw the MLB draft last year,
that's right, MLB draft,
it was 90% shortstops because the shortstop is usually the best athlete on the field.
Shortstops. First round was shortstops and pitchers. Second round was the first outfielder taken or something. It wasn't a shortstop or a pitcher. It's just crazy to me to watch that and not crazy, but it's understandable because the shortstop is, you go back to the Little League World Series. If a kid gets taken out of the game at pitcher, 9 times out of 10 he's going to go to shortstop or center field, and the center fielder or shortstop comes to the mound. Every once in a while, a catcher or first baseman, but that's how it usually works to relieve.
One other thing,
how it works.
Correa went out. He's got an oblique.
Yeah, usually obliques is early in the season. We're still pretty early. You get
Minnesota has 12 players on IR.
But that's Minnesota. So Correa, I said the first game, I'm sitting there watching. There goes, guy goes right out the game. Then Correa fouls one off his foot. I thought he was going to go out the game the way he was limping. And I was just like, here we go again with the Twins. They just can't keep their players on the field. And,
and the poor White Sox, they're horrible. They don't have much of a team. And then on top of it, they lost one of their best players, Luis Robert. I think he plays center field. Yeah. He's out 6 to 8 weeks with a hip flexor.
Well, see, he had a great season last year, but he stayed on the field last year.
Yep.
Now he's back hurt again. So,
and Jordan Montgomery fired Boris and hired another agent.
He lost all those guys money. He did by playing, and he can sit there and blame the owners all he wants. No, the owners played chicken with him, and he lost.
Well, I mean, it's not the same. You can't. Okay, you got Bryce Harper, $300 million.
Right.
Well, Jordan Montgomery, I'm sorry, is not Bryce Harper.
No.
And neither is Blake Snell.
Or Chapman, or
no, Chapman's nowhere near any of them. I mean, he's a real good fielding.
Chapman lost a lot of money.
Look, that dude made a play in San Francisco the other day behind the bag. That was Brooks Robinson or Cal Ripken type stuff. Schmidt, but I mean that was their type third base play, but he doesn't hit that well. But now the Yankees are going to have to pony up $500 million. If Juan Soto plays the rest of the year like he's played the first few weeks in New York, the fans will burn the stadium down if they let him get out of town. They're going to have to pony up the money to sign him.
Yeah,
$500 million. It's going to start at 500.
So I don't know how many years Stanton has left on that contract. He's got to be getting close to the end of that contract. I know they're not paying all of it. That Miami has to pay still some of that contract, but
the Yankees are paying the majority of it.
Right,
and they're paying Judge.
Rizzo has a hefty contract. And Garrett Cole's got a hefty contract. That's going to be a tough one. Because yes, he is just killing it right now.
Well, the Yankees are playing like the 27 Yankees or the 60. See, when you mentioned the 27 Yankees last week, and I laughed because when I was coming up, I was in high school in 1961. That's when Maris hit 61 homers, set the record, and Mantle hit 57 that year, and they both drove in about 120 runs. And there was a debate whether the 61 Yankees were as good or better than the 27 Yankees that had Ruth and Gehrig and that bunch. But I mean, Johnny Miles and that. I mean, there was a big argument about it. So but this Yankee team looks very good. I mean, if they can keep their health and their pitching. Rodon is doing better. What's the other guy, the left-hander? He's doing better than last year. Cortez or somebody, and then they're going to be getting the big man back another month. So I think they're going to, the Yankees look really good to me, and I'm not a Yankee fan, but I'm wearing my Derek Jeter shirt.
I saw that. I had to look at it twice to make sure.
Yeah, when your stepmother and I went on a baseball trip. Went to the different ballparks, Philadelphia, New York, and Washington, and went to Yankee Stadium. I went into the shop and bought me a Derek Jeter shirt. I've never been a Yankee. I've always rooted against the Yankees because, they were the enemy. I was a Brooklyn Dodger fan when I was a kid. So I rooted against the Yankees, but there's certain players who I love to watch play. I used to love, when I was a kid, when the Yankees came on, I always had to, my mom would call, if I was outside doing chores or something, she would call me on a Saturday afternoon and tell me to come in. Mickey Mantle was coming up because I wanted to see him hit. And Bernie in center field. I mean, that guy, I always liked him.
I hate the Phillies, but I always like Schmidt. I always like, Yankees is a little different for me. I love Soto, but
Jeter was always one of my favorite players, even though he was on the Yankees.
Well, that's Chipper Jones with the Braves for me. There's players for the enemy. I haven't found a Yankee. I used to love some Mattingly, but you know, I respect the players. I don't.
Yeah, well, you can. I'm just.
Yeah, and I understand that the captain Jeter. How do you not like him, right? Or at least have so. I always loved his hard play. That was that little it factor that he has. That when people compare him and him in the Hall of Fame and others are not, I'm always like, but he played shortstop at New York and was the captain forever.
Yeah. And he played hard.
Yeah, and nobody out hustles him, and that was the. I mean, and I agree that he wasn't even the best shortstop on his team for a large part of that with A-Rod there. But, that's just how it is. He was there. He was the captain, and he wasn't moving.
Well, one thing I noticed it reared its ugly head this past 4 or 5 days was defense. Oh, my goodness. I mean, the other night, son, I watched Baltimore play Boston. Boston looks like a little league team. Fly ball to left field, the guy drops it. They get 3 unearned runs that inning. Ground ball to shortstop, double play ball, right between his legs. Next inning, ground ball to third base. Third baseman goes to throw to first. Ball was straight up in the air, flipped out of his hand. I mean, it was horrible. Their defense was horrible. And then I was watching the highlights on MLB this morning. They were showing these goofy plays that were going on around the league the last few days. And I mean, people throwing the ball in the dugouts. And I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I've been saying it now for a couple of years that defense has gone down because the hitting is what everybody is there for. A lot of these teams get players and then they're out of position. They'll put them where they need them and try to make them. I mean, the Mets they got McNeil playing second, and he's terrible at second base. He's horrible. But you got to hide him somewhere. He's got to be either you want him in the lineup. He's got to play somewhere. I mean, that was like
Holiday's already made a few good plays at second base. He dropped a pop up one day, but that was a hard catch, and he running out to the outfield. But he's made a couple of real nice plays between he and Gunnar. They're doing all kinds. It's like two magicians in the middle of the field, but they're pitching so bad. And the pitching, Milwaukee, the team you picked to win the Central, and I said, wow, they lost Burns and he picked them. I mean,
that lineup to me,
they're smoking the ball. I mean,
they're playing in the Central, so
they smoked the Orioles. I mean, they smoked them.
Somebody's got to win.
Yeah, you're right. Well, Pittsburgh's got a winning record again, but we'll see what happens after May 1st.
Yeah, that's you don't get a anything for winning April. No.
Well, there were 2 things I really wanted to bring up today. One was about the pitching, and especially about with the kids, these children and teenagers getting Tommy John surgery. And that was one thing I wanted to bring up. The other thing I'd like to, if everybody is, I hope everybody's straight on the Ohtani situation. How that happened.
I don't know if I think we got enough parts to understand and have. We'll never get the full story.
This is what the federal government, the feds came out with a 23-page thing, and what it basically stated was this: the interpreter was not just an interpreter and a friend; he was also designated as an advisor for Ohtani. So what he did, when the teams went to Korea to play those 2 games, he stayed here and went to one of the financial institutions and said that Ohtani had authorized him to start a different account that he wanted to use for miscellaneous items. So he started taking money out of the other accounts and putting it in that account because apparently the financial institution didn't question it. So he started siphoning the money off to pay his gambling debts. When Ohtani came back, the reason it came out that Ohtani was doing him a favor and paying it off for him was because the word got to the Ohtani's representatives about this money being siphoned to another account. Nobody authorized. This guy did. So then the word that rumor got to somebody with the LA Times. That guy went and talked to the interpreter, and the interpreter, he was caught. So he said that Ohtani was doing it for him so he could pay off the debts. That's what he told the reporter. That's how it came out that Ohtani was doing it for him. The interpreter told the guy from the LA Times that. So then when Ohtani went up to his hotel room and confronted him with it, then he admitted it. And then that's when Ohtani made the phone calls and, everything. Both MLB and the government said that, Ohtani never bet on baseball.
Well, it's pretty.
He was taking advantage of, like a lot of athletes and people in show business and that.
Somebody doesn't want to deal with that side of it. He let him do it. I thought the interpreter was in Korea because I could have sworn.
Well, maybe he was. The way they said it on MLB, it sounded like he was here doing it while they were in Korea.
Nah, he was there.
He probably did it before they left.
Right. Yeah.
But they said it was an interview he did with some media guy from LA Times or something.
And I heard it was more money than at first.
It's 16 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But somebody at work thought it was a lot.
They said it was $4.5 million at first, but
right.
what it was, he siphoned off 16 million, but he paid $4.5 million to the gambling.
Yeah, because that to me, I felt comfortable that Ohtani, because the other problem was he just didn't bet on baseball. He was doing it illegally through an illegal.
Well, he didn't bet on baseball. They said
right, I don't care. You can't still in California. You cannot.
I understand that, but he did not. The people said, "Well, how can he make all those bets and not bet on baseball?" He was on a 24-hour soccer channel that showed soccer games all over the world, and he was betting on soccer games.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on right now. I mean, basketball, hockey.
Well, somebody said in the last 5 years he ran up $40 million in debt. He must be the worst gambler in the history of the country.
Well, I've said it before because I've seen this before. Once you start losing, you start going for longer odds to make up that loss. And you just start digging a hole.
Yeah, you just
start digging a hole.
You're done. You can't fix stupid. Yeah,
right. Well, it's not even that. You just want you feel like all I need is to hit this one and to pay it off, and it's just a bad thought about it. So, yeah. So I
just want to clear that up because
I just like I said before, I don't care. I felt like Ohtani didn't bet. I think if he would have, it would have on baseball. I think MLB, he would have been pulled out of the games. He wouldn't be playing right now. Wouldn't have been playing during the investigation. So I think MLB are because MLB has supposedly got better investigators than any investigation firm in the world, right? So if they want to know what's going on, they're going to know. They're going to find out.
He turned over his phone, his computer, and everything. Said, "Go look," and there was no evidence of anything coming even close to it.
Yeah. So, but that's just how I felt about it, and I still don't know if we know 100% because
the interpreter's out on $25,000 bond. He has to go to counseling for his addiction, and he has to get a job. And then, in May, he's going to be sentenced.
Yeah, I just, I'm just glad we're past it for baseball and get back to baseball news because that's, to me, was, I had a friend that was more upset that they didn't set him out during an investigation and all that. And I was like, well, it's not the same as the other stuff. It wasn't the same as Pete Rose. It wasn't the same as Bauer. It wasn't the same thing. It was different. I agree. Like if something comes of it, they need to punish him like it was the other stuff. And they lied. You need to punish him but like you did Rose, but it doesn't look that way. We're back to baseball, so good.
I just want to clear that.
I'm glad you did, because I've been really busy with work.
I was a little shocked that the Feds came out that quick. They're still looking.
Because I think everybody was forward with their information from the beginning.
Well, see, they had everybody's phones, and they had all
the Feds wanted more. What I understood was the Feds wanted the illegal, who they were gambling with and how. And the IRS was wanting to know, okay, where we want our chunk. Where's that money? So that's kind of how it is with that. And I just now we're, like I said, back to baseball. Dodgers being the Dodgers, they're playing well. They got a lineup.
They're doing pretty well. I mean, I had a surprise team in each league, and both of them are doing halfway decent. Detroit in the American League, even though they lost yesterday. Detroit in the American League and San Diego in the National League. I had both those teams being surprises this year, and they're doing pretty well. And, in the Mets, they were winning yesterday, and then the wheels came off. But
the Mets are good till the 8th inning. And then whatever happens in the top of the 9th, and it's not with their regular closer. It's when they try to close with somebody else, or it's a tie ball game and they go into the 10th, they implode. And
Alonso hit 2 home runs yesterday.
Yeah, they've lost 3 games this year after the 8th inning.
I'm interested to see the Mets have a big question to answer this year. Should they go ahead at the break? It depends on how well they're playing. But if they're not doing any better than they're doing now, should they go ahead and trade Alonso and get what they can and get some stuff?
Yes.
Or should they just re-sign him? Re-sign him for the duration and make him the face of the franchise. He's the face.
They want to re-sign him, but he's not, because guess who's his agent?
What I'm saying, son, they'll have to make up their mind whether they want to do that or not.
Right, but
when he reaches free agency, will they pay him what he wants and keep him because he's the face of the franchise? And if not, if you're not going to do that, go ahead and trade him at the trade deadline.
Even if you trade him, you can still do that, because he's not going to resign wherever he goes. Boris is not going to allow him to resign. Boris is going to want to play the free agent market. That's the same thing with Soto. So you're going to have to pony up the money.
And these guys, they're going to get the ball. They're going to get.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Last year, these owners are looking at free agency in 2024 into the 2025 season, and they're looking in comparison to what's out here this year, and it wasn't the same. This was a down year for free agency, and you're not just going to get a bunch of money anymore because you're the best player of that year in free agency. It's just not going to work. Bobby Witt just struck out. So I mean, that's just how it's going to be for now on. The money, and this is the tightest I've seen the league in a long time. It looks very, I've said it before, like football, where a lot of the teams are very, very even. And I think a few teams have dominance in either hitting or pitching, and not in both areas. So
the Yankees, to me, look like the most complete ball club.
Yes, right now. And
right now. Yeah, it's early. It's right now.
And I just think, I agree with that.
Arizona's off to a slow start.
Yeah, and I kind of suspected that, with a little bit of a hangover of not ever being in that situation, not having veterans that's been in that situation, where they got so close. And that's a long season. When you start adding up all those extra games, that's a lot of games. And I thought it would be a little hangover for them to get going. So that doesn't surprise me. That what's really surprising me is how bad the Astros are playing, even with their injuries. I thought they would be good enough to overcome those. But again, it kind of started like this last year. So, right now, it's a very even league. And you're talking about the Mets. The Mets got creamed in their first two series. Then they came back, beat the Braves in a series. They're playing.
They're only 2.5 games out.
Right. And I mean,
and the Braves are in trouble. They lost Strider. Sale is pitching halfway decent, but you got to be better than halfway decent. And then they're in trouble because their pitching is not very good. And this is what I was afraid of. That's why I went ahead and picked them to win the division, but I picked the Phillies.
Well, with Strider out, to me, that puts the Phillies there. I mean,
oh yeah, because the Phillies. I mean, all right, let's take the Phillies for instance. Take Wheeler or Nola off of that club and see what happens.
Right.
And that's what the Braves have done. They lost Strider.
Right.
So, I mean, just do that. And I mean, right now the Phillies ain't beating the world up. That's for sure.
Well, because they're having the same problem they've had the last few years. And that's their bullpen. So.
And that was supposed to be so much better this year.
Yeah, because it was.
But it's early again.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a while. Like, again, the Phillies played the last 2 years. They played a lot of games. And that catches up with people. They played a lot of extra games and with the same pitching staff. So that catches that's more pitches and all that stuff catches up with people. They always have that, the next year after, in the past, after a 20-game winner, they have a bad year the year after because they threw so much. They had that stat up, but you don't ever see that anymore. So what are you going to do? Show a 14-game winner and show that stat? So then usually teams that go to the World Series, why they don't repeat, because their pitchers had so many pitches on their arms the year before.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then the other night, it was Friday night, Baltimore came home, and it was the first game for the new guy, and I couldn't watch it because it was on Apple TV.
Well, I saw, the away game when they were playing the Brewers when he got called up, which I thought was smart, calling him up on an away game, try to take the pressure off of being at home for your first game. But his dad and his family was there, and there was a large contingent of his family there. So, that I think that was a smart move on Baltimore. And you knew he was going to get called up as soon as the deadline was up. It was like, make up any reason why you didn't have him start. But then I saw they got 4 other guys in Tidewater.
Well, look at Cowser.
Well, Cowser
made the team because he was just so good in spring training. They couldn't. And
he was good last year too.
That Joker, he smoked Boston. He was eating Boston up offensively and defensively.
And then they got 4 guys that should be in the majors right now.
Exactly.
In the minors.
They may have to trade some of them to get some pitching because their pitching is having problems.
I can see 2 guys being shocked. I could see it. But they got 4 guys in the top 40 MLB, I think is what I saw today. In Norfolk. I keep wanting to say Norfolk. I'm old. I still think it was Tidewater.
Well, Norfolk's a Tidewater.
Yeah, I know, but it's the Norfolk Tides, not Tidewater Tides.
Way back in the day, it used to be Hampton.
Right, Hampton Roads, yeah. I used to go watch the Hampton Roads Admirals when they came to town to play the Richmond Renegades in hockey. So, yeah. So, anything else, Dad, before we take off?
Nope.
This April weekend?
No, when this is over, I'll go in there and watch the rest of the Masters.
Yeah. So,
and the winner so far is the golf course.
And wind.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's supposed to blow today like that, but the golf course has just kicked their butt.
Well, if they want to make it hard at the Masters, they can. It can tuck in some stuff where you can't shoot for the hole, and then it's like putting on a roller coaster.
And the wind and the sun made the greens are runways.
Yeah. We were talking about it Friday at work. So
that's me. I'll be watching that.
Yeah. But anyway, I just want to wish everybody a happy week. We're halfway through April, and enjoy the games. Until next time, See ya.